Question Everything was born out of a desire for curiosity, a love for people's stories, and a deep belief that through open and honest conversations, freedom can be found. Freedom from shame, from judgment, and from fear. So let's talk about the stuff we've been hiding from. Let's say the things we were told not to say. And let's ask the questions we've been wanting to ask, but have been too scared to. Because when we question everything, everything changes. Let's go. Welcome to Question Everything. My name is Holly Crevo, and I'm so excited to have you here today. So today's episode is on family breakups, midlife reinventions, and divine downloads. And I was lucky enough to be joined by my amazing friend, Liz Svatek, who is an amazing woman doing great things for other women entrepreneurs and other women leaders in the world. She has group coaching, she has masterminds, and she also has an amazing podcast, Warrior Woman. And it's just a great listen. It'll be linked in the notes below. And she is all of those things and so much more, right? She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a sister, she's a daughter, she's a friend. And we connected over this concept of this. I'm not even calling them dysfunctional relationships anymore, because they're just relationships, right? And all relationships can have some type of dysfunction, but just those relationships, especially those that are familial relationships, that just don't work anymore, and what that means to kind of walk away from those. And as I've shared before on the show, I had a very fractured relationship with my father, and he passed away earlier this year. And the stories that I told myself of what that relationship said about me as a human, those are crazy stories. And what's great is Liz shares her own story of her relationship she had to walk away from. And it wasn't the fact that she separated herself from that relationship, but what she said that meant about her, right? And I think this is such a powerful lesson for all of us to use in some way. Is it's not necessarily what happens to us, but it's the story we tell ourselves about it. That somebody who doesn't have a relationship with a mother, father, brother, sister, even their child, right? What that says, it means they're a bad inter-role, right? They have no compassion, they're not kind, all these things that aren't always true. And I love that she shared that honestly and openly, because I think it's a dialogue we need to be having more about how sometimes our relationships, whether it's blood or not, just don't really serve us anymore. And what that looks like to walk away in a way that honors who you are and honors that person, right? That when it is important for you to show up as somebody who is kind and compassionate and shows up for others, what that looks like. So I loved this conversation. We talked a lot about a midlife reinvention for herself and what it means to be a warrior woman. And again, as you watch this episode, if you are somebody that is struggling with a relationship that you're in, right? And one that you don't feel like you can walk away from because of obligations, start to question, like, what am I making this mean? What does that mean? So excited for you guys to be here today. Enjoy this conversation, and let's go. Good afternoon, Liz. So good to see you.
Great to see you. I love this blue on you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love your glasses. Your glasses always make me happy.
I know my multicolored glasses. I got the rose-colored glasses on, you know.
Oh, that's a little omen for the day, isn't it? Well, I shared in our intro about how we connected at Powerhouse. And I was thinking about this earlier. I think what was so neat is that I don't know that we would have connected if we wouldn't have simply shown up in the same pajamas.
It's so true. It was just one of those things we felt like was divine intervention. So we were like, what does this mean?
Yeah,
this means we're best friends, obviously.
It has to mean, and we both had slippers on. And I think that's what's, because there's 60 women and you can't spend a lot of time with everybody, right? And so I was thinking, how cool that we were brought together, and it's, however much longer, 6 months after that, and we're having this conversation.
I love it. I love it. We've kept in touch. I'm proud of us.
Yes, very good. Well, good. Well, before we get into the juicy topic where we're going to question some things, I shared how you are all things warrior women, right? You've got the podcast, mastermind, group coaching. I would love to hear, what is a warrior woman? What is your perception of that?
Well, you know what? That has changed for me. I think in the beginning, I thought, being a warrior woman was about resilience and, powering through and, kind of bulldozing, getting through, getting by. I think now it's become so different for me, because now I think resilience is bullshit, because I think that's how women basically bypass all their feelings, and me included at the time.
Yeah.
Now I feel like warrior women heal themselves, and are not afraid to ask for help, and are not afraid to keep learning and growing and expanding. That, when I see a woman reinvent or make a tough choice, but then, thrive, that's to me like some warrior stuff right there. So now my definition's definitely changed. I mean, I always say women are not born warriors, we become them, because it's not like you were like a warrior baby, some people were,
Yeah.
but most women are not warrior babies. But over time we go through things, you and I have had many discussions about things we've gone through, and I think that the lie we tell ourselves is when a new thing pops up, we're like, I can't do this. And it's like, well, actually you can't, because you already did it before. You just maybe don't want to do it again. I totally get that.
Right.
And maybe you want to be on the floor a minute, maybe you want to be on the floor a minute, and you want to cry your eyes out a while, but warriors get up eventually. Sometimes you need to be on the floor. And I don't think the floor is a bad place. You get a lot of perspective on the floor. So I caution women from getting up off the floor too soon now. So I think you need to stay there a minute and hold a beat and feel the feelings, not try to hot potato them off of you.
Right.
And then, see where you are and gain that perspective so that you can, grow and learn from it and not repeat the same thing.
That's interesting. I love that too. That reinvention, right? Doing something different. Like, so it never stays the same.
Yeah. Well, also because I think the whole midlife crisis thing is it's not a midlife crisis. It's actually a cry for reinvention. That's what we're really talking about, because if you think about it, right? Like even the guys who are like, screw this, I'm going to get a sports car and leave my wife, all the things. What they really are saying is, I feel like shit about myself. I don't feel good. Like, I feel like I don't look good. I feel like it's a cry, like where you want something different. You don't know what it is. Right. And you think you're going to solve it with a new wife or a new car. And you really end up in the same place. So what it really is a cry for reinvention. I'm sick of this job. I feel our relationship has kind of hit a wall. Like, okay, well, great. Like, let's do the work and figure it out, get the car and let me go on a ride with you.
Yeah. Keep the wife, get the new car.
Keep me around and get the car.
Well, it's interesting. So do you think this reinvention, do you think you can be a warrior woman without going through a reinvention of yourself?
No.
Yeah.
First of all, how many times do you go think about who you were in your 20s,
right?
Or your 30s or your 40s, and now I'm in the 50s. You change so much. It's not even like you're trying to reinvent. It just happens, right? Like you just gain new perspective. You meet a new person, you have a job, you have an experience, you have a goal that you achieve. And then now you're like, now what? So these reinventions aren't always by choice. They come upon us. But I also think you've got to take the reins of it. You can't just sit there and say like, oh God, this is all happening to me. There's a certain point where you have to answer the call, right? You got to answer the call. So I think it happens naturally. So you're going to be a warrior woman either way. You're stuck with me. All of us are warrior women. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. You either own it. Yeah. You kind of step in and own that warriorship.
Yes. Reclaim your inner warrior.
Yeah. Reclaiming your warrior.
Yeah.
Well, tell me, we talked, earlier this week about what we want to have this discussion, because you did a great job at kind of pointing out to me where I was getting blocked on some things about being, we all have these different facets of what we could have conversations around. And, one thing that I shared with you is why I started this was I was going through the grief of my father, and it was unlike anything I had seen out there, right? I was like, this isn't what's mirrored to me in other people's relationships on TV, what society tells me. And so I wanted to kind of explore that. And that really resonated for you about, these complicated familial relationships. So we wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit more.
Yes.
So would love to hear, it's kind of a broad question, but when you think in your experience, what has been a complicated family relationship for you?
Well, I mean, I have several. Well, I think the most complicated family relationship has been with my sister, who's 8 years younger than me. We've always had kind of like a gap, didn't get along, fighting. Like it just has never really been great. As we got older, I had kept having hope that we would kind of come back together, or that we would like kind of, get to a point where like, we could come together. And there was a short time where, she was having a baby and had a baby and got married. And I thought, oh, well, now we have like kind of some at least similar things going on. But ultimately, I made the decision to actually separate from her and to not be in contact with her. And I think that decision opened up a whole other part of my life, because I think I was spending an inordinate amount of time really being stressed and pressured and shamed in my mind about like, oh my God, like, who am I? I'm this warrior woman. I say I love women and I'm not even getting along with my sister. I don't talk to my sister. That's so shameful,
Yeah.
And then I would talk to other people and they'd be like, well, I don't talk to my dad and I don't talk to my mom and I don't talk to my brother. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, there's a lot more people out there that are not really talking about this. And now with just the political climate, that has separated so many people from their family members, just this vast political difference has killed a lot of relationships. So now I feel like I want to talk about it. I used to not want to talk about it, but now I want to talk about it because I want to make sure that women know it's okay, that it's okay that you have somebody in your family that it doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't always work. And I think what we get modeled all the time is all these close sisters and brothers and sisters. We're so close. I'm so close with my mother. It's like, well, you don't often hear about the ones who are like, my mother literally and I are in a horrible toxic dance. And literally, I want to throw up before she comes to my house. I mean, I've heard that more often than close.
Yeah. But nobody's talking about it, right? Or probably if you look on the social media feeds or those conversations, it's not that piece.
No.
Well, tell me a little bit, and I love that you kind of brought to the attention of, you are a very, very fierce cheerleader for women. You're empowering, and you're also a coach. So you work on the growth work, and to be those two people and not have a relationship with your sister, maybe get into a little bit more of what that shame felt like.
I mean, I think, whenever we're trying to hide something, that's when you're really in trouble, when you're trying to hide it.
Yeah.
It's like, don't want to tell anyone that this is happening. But I really for a long time wouldn't tell people how bad it was. I would just silently be suffering. My super close friends knew, but a lot of people did not. And I look back on that, I thought, wow, I must have really felt terrible about myself that I just wouldn't even tell people how I was suffering. So, it makes me sad to think about it. And it also makes me sad. Like, it's not like I don't say sometimes, oh, what if, or like, oh, couldn't I just call her, or da 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 da. But honestly, finally coming to the point where I said, okay, I'm just not going to be in a relationship with her. It's changed my life so much because it's also given me more empathy for her. Like, I've realized, like, I think when we were like in this toxic relationship and we were having all these issues, it was so easy to blame her, demonize her, and say it's her fault. Now I can clearly see what is mine, the things I did, the part I had in it. And I love her. I want the best for her. I can love her better now, because now I don't have this constant push and pull. I just have this like feeling I can feel towards her and wish her the best and love her. And I don't have to carry the weight of it. So it really has been so freeing. I think my first initial thing was like, this is going to upset me every day to not be in touch with my sister. Like, it's going to like, almost like a bad breakup where you like forget that you broke up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend and you wake up in the morning, you realize again. Right. I thought that's how it was going to be every single day. Like, that's what I thought. And it wasn't. I mean, it was that for like a little bit of time. And then it became much more peaceful than I thought. And then I thought, oh, well, this is the answer. If I have this level of peace that I have not been able to have, and believe me, if I did this, everybody would have to assume I tried everything in the world. It's not like I didn't try, right, to make it work. So I tried everything in the world. And to now have this peace that's to me the answer.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Well, it's interesting, that loss, you're like, if I cut this off, that's going to be devastating. But what I'm hearing is you were already living in that devastation every day, right? So it was probably, it's very sad still probably at times, I'm sure, but like the loss, it was still a loss for you is what I heard, right? Whether before or after.
It was like I lost it before.
Yeah.
You've spoken about this a little bit with your dad.
Yeah.
But like, it was already going really bad. How much worse did I think was going to get? Like, it had gotten as bad as it could possibly get. So me cutting it off, I think it's so odd that I thought that was going to be worse. I'm like, it was in no way could be.
Oh, and it's almost like you gave both of you a gift, right? Because you stopped looking at her as a villain.
Yes.
And that empathy that you talked about.
And I didn't have it before.
Yeah.
I really didn't have it. And I think, you know what, when you give yourself love, when you say, this is not good for me, and I'm going to what do I need? When you put yourself first, truly, then you can have more capacity of patience and love and understanding for another person. But when you're sitting there sacrificing yourself day and night, trying to make something work, it's really hard to feel empathy for another person.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. So, you talk about, what was it that, because was this, you share whatever you feel comfortable. Was this a recent decision that you kind of cut this off, or how recent was this?
It was a couple years ago. So I was turning 49.
Okay.
And I was not happy in about almost every area of my life. And this was a main point. And so I put everything on the table and nothing was safe. I was like, you know what? Let me look at everything. Like, maybe I need to quit this job. Maybe I need to, I don't know what's going on with my marriage. I don't know. Like, I was like, anything was up for grabs. I was like, I got to look at everything because I'm miserable. And it was one of the first things I did, because I realized, like, this is too much. And then I told myself, well, I'll just do it temporarily. Like, it'll just be like a temporary thing, because it was too scary to think that it could be any type of permanent thing. So I just said, I'm going to take a break, let's take this break and it's going to be fine. And it's not like I haven't done that before and gone right back, so, but I took this break and I really stuck to it, and it happened to be over a holiday. And I think that was a big thing. Like, oh, she's not actually going to show up to Christmas. Like, she's going to stay with her family and not show up over here because she needs to take care of herself. It triggered the living daylights out of everybody and made everybody real angsty, but I felt great. And I thought, I cannot be making all these decisions for other people. I have to make some decisions for me. And the more I started doing that, the more I started saying, I can't put the kids, my husband, my sister, the laundry, my job, everything ahead of me. That was what my problem was. I was so low on the list. I wasn't even on the list. I wasn't even on it. So once I put myself at the top of the list and stood firm in that, and it was hard to do because it felt selfish. But once I did that, it's like, then I could be there for my kids, my husband. Then I could feel better. I felt happier. I felt freer. It was really a game changer.
Oh, so it did the complete opposite of what you kind of thought, right? Is what you put yourself first and everything else kind of got a little better.
I thought women that did that, I remember what I would see women who are like going to exercise class and doing all the things for themselves. I'd be like, they're such selfish people. Selfish.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
I would see that and be like, or like if a mother
must be nice.
Yeah, it must be nice. Yeah. Or if a mother and daughter or a mother, two sisters had a really close relationship, I was like, I bet they really hate each other deep down. Like, I mean, it just makes you bitter.
Yeah, totally.
Like, you just become bitter. So now I'm like, now I feel absolute empathy, sympathy. And also I'm here for all the things. No one has to do what I did. They can still stay in the relationship and just put up some really good boundaries, maybe, or put up, there's all different ways to do this. My way is not everybody's way, but I do want everyone to know that I feel no shame in the way I handled mine. I feel great about it. And if you are to the level where I got, where it was really just, there was a point of no return, that it is okay to say, yes, we are family, but this does not work. And I'm going to love this person from afar.
Family's fascinating, right? Because you're like put in this place and then you're just like expected to have this relationship and you're just like, we have nothing in common, or we're so different. And it's just like the kind of putting the square peg into the round hole.
Yeah. And it's very hard, and because it affects everyone in the family, obviously.
Yeah.
So
tell me a little bit more about that. You said the holidays, it made everybody else real like anxious, and you were probably like breathing for the first time in a long time at holidays. So tell me how did you handle that with your family?
There was a lot of pressure and conversation. Like, are you sure you could just come for the day? You could just come for the day. She feels really sorry. Like it was just a lot of like, I've been going through a lot of push and pull with that for many, many years. And there was a point even after I kind of said, okay, this is my boundary, that we kind of tried again. And then it didn't work. And I thought, how many times are you going to try? Like, this is 40 years of trying. So, at some point I had to just disappoint everybody. And now I've realized that disappointing people is good. When you disappoint people, it's not a bad thing, because it means that you are taking care of yourself. So you can't make everybody else happy all the time, So, and I like to make people happy. I really do, but I'm not going to do it at the expense of myself. And I think before that was I had muddy boundaries, and I couldn't really always feel like, should I do this? Like I was like always second guessing myself. Like, I don't know, like as if I was confused. There was no confusion, but I acted confused. I was keeping myself in a state of confusion to distract myself from the absolute obviousness of the one choice that I just refused to make, which was, this is done. Instead, I was like, let me be confused over here, over here, over here, here. And then finally one day when I was like, oh, I'm just stopping this, it's going to stop. The minute I stopped it, wow, it became super unconfusing. Yeah. No more confusion.
So was it anger masking as confusion? Not anger, I'm sorry. Was it fear masking as confusion, do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was just, I was terrified because who am I going to be if I am a person who doesn't talk to their sister? Right. Am I a bad sister? Am I a bad mother? Am I a bad daughter? Am I a bad family member? Am I a horrible woman because I can't, like I'm not generous. I'm not kind. I'm not, all the things that went through my mind, like ways that I tried to keep myself in that relationship because I thought it would mean all those things. And then I realized it doesn't have to mean that. I'm giving that meaning to it. And what other people think of it is none of my business. So really it's like, if I'm going to attach meaning to it, I'm going to attach the meaning of, I love myself too much to do this anymore. That's the meaning I'm going to give it.
Yeah. And is that still the meaning it has for you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And, and frankly, I love her. I love her too much to do it to her either.
Right.
It's not helping either of us.
Yeah.
So to me, like, while I'm holding the boundary, it doesn't mean that I'm not also doing it for her.
It's interesting. So I don't know do you listen to Glennon Doyle very much?
Oh yeah.
The story that her sister talks about how when she was in the throes of her like alcoholism, I think it was like she quit talking to her because she knew that she had to protect, because she knew Glennon wouldn't protect the relationship and she had to. So she knew if they had any chance of moving forward, she would have to step away. And that kind of sounds kind of like what you're saying too, is like you love her enough to not continue this dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and in those dysfunctional relationships, it is like a hamster wheel. It's I can't tell you how many times you went over the same argument, but just dressed up a little bit different, It was a lot. And I realized, which also kind of screwed with my brain a little bit. I realized we were really wanting some of the same things. We wanted to be seen and heard. Like when I boiled down, she went about it a completely different way than I did, but it was in essence the same thing. We felt we wanted to be seen and heard, and neither of us felt like we could ever be seen and heard enough in our families or to each other. And it was like this endless, like black hole. You could never see us or hear us enough, Yeah. And so it created so many problems. And knowing like, okay, there is not an answer right now. And can we take a pause here? And is it okay to say, this is not working, and walk away and say, and it's, do I know if it's forever? No, I don't. I can't, how can I predict that? But to me, there was no other answer that would actually bring anybody peace.
Yeah. And it sounds like you tried to find all the other answers, right? You tried all sorts of things.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Read all the books, tried all the things, had the communications. I remember there was one point where we were like, this is right when it was kind of going well, right before we finally said, I finally said no. we made like a deal where we were like, okay, if we're having a moment of disagreement, we're just going to be really honest and we're going to just call it out and we're going to talk it through. We're not going to like talk to mom, and we're not going to like shit can each other, and we're not going to like make it bigger. We're just going to like face it. And so for a while it was really good. We like really were good, and we were good communicators, and then it went to a level that it had never gone before over something really, really small that I gaslighted her on. It was like I was a super gaslighty person at that time. And I gaslit her, but she blew. And once that happened, I was like, oh, we've reached like another point. And I thought it couldn't have gotten worse. Right. Like, then it did. And that's what really showed me like, oh, wow, this is like, something's really bad is going to happen. Like I need to, this is really at a point where it's not going to make anybody happy.
Right. Well, and it would, talking about, you said you were like gaslighting, you talked about like mistakes you've made. I know that, I mean, obviously we're all humans. We all make mistakes. We all like have our triggers, we respond. So like, I'm curious, did you feel like, you have this version of Liz that you were with your family, your friends, your clients, everybody. Did she see that version of you, or was that a different version? Do you feel like?
That's a good question. I think we both saw each other as the kids we were, like it's almost like we had arrested development, right? We were still having the same fights we had when we were like younger, they were just, again, dressed up differently because we were older.
Yeah.
So I feel like neither of us could get a good perspective on like who we were in the world currently, but I also did not become a coach, did not launch a podcast, did not do any of that until I let that relationship go with my sister. I realized there was a bunch of things I was not doing because my self-esteem was in such disarray from this relationship. And because I was constantly watching what I said, watching what I did for fear of any criticism. So once that critic I felt was removed, I could suddenly do all these things. So I wasn't showing up really as a person like this, even, to her credit, even then. So she couldn't have seen me like that, but also we didn't really let each other evolve. We were always reminding each other, oh, I know you, you're that person, So, and I think that's hard in families because when one person is trying to grow and change, it's the other person feels threatened and wants to be like, nah, no, you're the same.
I knew who you were at 14 years old, Liz. You can't fool me. Like,
right. And I think parents do that too with kids, they get uncomfortable. Oh, she's getting too big for her britches. Listen to her, blah, 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 all the things. And I think it's really hard. It becomes threatening to them when you're having your own ideas or your own success, or, you're choosing a partner, maybe that somebody doesn't totally love or whatever the hell it is. People feel threatened. They want you to be the same that they've always known so they can feel comfortable and not feel the fear that you've changed.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. You talked about that, I think you said you're turning 49. You were like, well, something's got to give, like on the table, all the things. You're like, do I just leave my kids and family and just run off and go to Costa Rica?
Into the hills.
Yeah, just run into the hills. And it sounds like, was this kind of the first decision you made that kind of domino affected all the other things in your life? Or maybe that's not a good question.
I think women make those dominant decisions all the time, right? Decision to have a baby.
Right.
Talk about your life never being the same ever again. Decision to get married, like all decision to go to college, like all the different, just decision to take a job in another city. So I think there's all those domino moments. There's a lot of those.
Yeah, maybe I don't know if I love that question as soon as I asked that. So maybe like, cause did it give you maybe the confidence or the awareness to then say, okay, this is how else I need to cut negativity, cut my stuff that's not serving me to find the place where you're at today?
Well, I think I've even evolved past that. I think my highest value now is ease. That's my highest value. And so to me, if it's not going to bring me ease, meaning it's not going to bring me peace or joy or levity or playfulness or calm, or if it's not bringing me that, I don't do it. I don't invite it in. I don't bring it around. And I look to live my life that way, like as an energy, show up that way, lead that way. you know, even if I'm coaching somebody and they're, you know, incredibly going through something incredibly hard, I use levity. I
Mhm.
use playfulness. I use calm and peace and ease to try to help them move through it. You know, that's
Mhm.
part of just the way I do things now.
Yeah.
So I think I've evolved even like further past like keeping the negativity out of
Mhm,
whereas
mhm.
like I'm almost like front loading, you know, with my
Yeah.
ease and my peacefulness. And do I get derailed? Of course.
Yeah.
Hello. But I would say I'm living so differently now than I've ever lived, because that's my highest value. And when your highest value is that, then you attract more of it. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mm. What would you have said 10 years ago was your highest value?
it's a good question. I like that question. I would say family was my highest value, you know, just like
Mhm.
my pleasing probably,
Mhm.
and catering to my kids, my husband, and like social relationships, friends. Like I was the person that was like had to celebrate every single person's birthday through every single birthday dinner. I was you know, PTO president, in the junior league, volunteering all the time. There was a lot of externals,
Mhm.
you know. I really, I always call myself a recovering neck upper, because I really didn't like, was not in touch with my body at all.
Recovering
So
neck up
in
forever.
that zone, I was just like a disco ball, just like
Yeah.
reflecting everybody else's stuff and going social butterfly fun times, and not really letting people know that I was, you know, having issues at all, upset. You know, my sister, my kid was born with a different arm. That was like insanely stressful. Like I just didn't always like tell people all that stuff. I just kind of tried to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's interesting. That really resonates for me, because I found that I'm being more aware. That's not at that level, but that's definitely, I'm the one that wants the person that does everything, right? And I've slowly realized, one, it can come off as generosity, and it can also come up as like a self-serving, I need attention, I want to be special, I want to be important.
Yes. Strings
Um,
attached.
yeah, right. It's like, yes, it is generous and kind, and you want to be a good friend. And there's a little bit of like ego involved with that.
Yes. I think, you know, there a lot of women are people pleasers. I
Mhm.
always say people pleasing is a trauma response, because it is.
Mhm.
It's part of the fawn response. And people pleasing can really, you know, it feels sometimes desperate, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll just do it. You
Yeah.
know, you'll make the 700 cupcakes yourself, and you'll stay late and do all the things, and you'll
Mhm.
help your friend and kill yourself.
Mhm.
And I hate it. I hate that for women. I've done that, and I've burnt myself to death out on everything. And I've had that, you know, 49 waking up, like, what is this all for? Like, what is it all about?
Mhm.
You know, and I saying no to some things was really, really helpful to me, but it was hard in the beginning. It just like was like my whole identity was like helping everybody and being the one that showed up and celebrating everybody and being everyone's best friend. And that's a lot of, I mean, like COVID really helped me with that, got me right off the hamster wheel of the social life. Suddenly I was like in my little house with my podcast. I was like, woo, this is so great. And I've really held on to that. Like
Yeah.
I'm off of a lot of the social schedules now, because, and I'm really choosy, because I like my alone time. I like,
Mhm.
you know, connecting with people deeper than like the party of 20, you know?
Right.
So it really has changed me for the better. And I think the people pleasing, it's a fear response, it's trauma response. And I think it's hard to let it go sometimes, because you don't know who you are when you're not doing it.
Mhm. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because because like with most things, right? You do get something out of it. It can be exhausting, but there is like we always get like a benefit for the things that we do, or we wouldn't be doing them. No
And
matter
then people
what
get
that
used
is.
to that role, by the way. And then when you tell them you're not going to do it,
Oh,
guess what? They don't like that shit.
yeah. Yeah.
Like you're the one that always volunteers for everything at school, and suddenly you say no, and they're like, what? They're
Yeah.
like incensed, even though you've been the president, the this, the that, the room mom, everything. I've
Yeah.
seen it happen. Like it's crazy. Like
Like,
it's almost like they expect certain people, they will just run into the ground, because they know that person is like a people pleaser. So they're just going to take it all the way.
Liz will do it. Holly will do it. Ask them. They'll
Oh
do it.
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget that she's like killed herself for
Yeah.
years for us. Let's maybe not ask her. No. Let's ask her for sure. Let's ask Holly.
She won't say no. She won't say no. She'll think about it. Yeah. Well, tell me, I'd love to kind of talk a little bit more about this reinvention, right? Because I love yours. Like, it's not a midlife crisis. Reinvention sounds like you went through what, like 3 years ago.
Yes.
And, from our conversations and knowing you, it seems like since like you have exploded after your reinvention, right? Like doing all the things and doing it with ease, right? No hustle culture, no all that bullshit that just like go. So tell me, like, what's been the key to the success of your reinvention?
Meditation, which is hysterical because it's almost like I wanted to run from meditation. I could not sit still at all, ever. So it just kills me that I say that now. Like, it like makes me want to just laugh. Like, if you're laughing right now and you are the worst meditator and you will not meditate, I am you. So just laugh away, but go do it. You only need to give it 5 minutes. I used to set a timer.
Yeah.
I was
You
like,
look at it and it's like 24
minutes.
seconds.
But really, as a person that's like outgoing and a talker and all the things, and I've always been, it was really hard to get quiet and go internal because it felt scary. But once I did that, now it's like going to a spa. That time where I'm quiet, meditating, journaling, doing any morning work. And I really believe in that you got to get ahead of that morning and have that time with yourself. And even on vacation, I just got back from Italy. I did it in Italy. Having that time to center yourself is so tantamount to like feeling the ease and the peace. That stuff is not because the stuff is coming.
Yeah.
The chaos is coming for you. That's never going to change. It's not like the externals have really changed that much of my life. The internals have changed, right? Like the whole world could be crumbling down around my ears, but I'm like, oh, that's cool because I have peace and ease. And I do get derailed. I do have to get back on the track. But overall, most of the time, I am in a good place. And that is because of my discipline of knowing I got to take that time. Yeah. I got to be quiet. I got to have time to reflect. I got to think, I got to write down things I'm grateful for. I got to have some belief work. I need to meditate. Like I need that stuff.
Yeah.
I need it. And when I have it, I'm much better off.
Cool. So when you say meditation, what is your meditate? Because I know I'm a huge fan on defining every single thing we talk about, right? Because it can mean a million different things. So for
this
you,
is your reporter anger. I love your reporter.
See, and I'm like,
reporterness is my favorite. It's my favorite.
What do you mean by warrior?
Journalism.
Yeah, like my little binoculars or my little. Not binoculars. So yeah, like when you how do you, or maybe like if you had to give somebody who's like, I don't have time to meditate, I think it's bullshit, blah blah blah. Like what's the gateway meditation drug?
First of all, I want to say, when you say you don't have time and it's bullshit, I fucking hear you. I was the same. Hear my F word. But I will also say that is bullshit because meditation, if you literally talk to any highly conscious, successful leader in any domain, they will all tell you they meditate. And I know some people like guided meditations and all the things. And you know what? However you get into it, do it. I don't even care. But for me, the easiest thing to do is to just sit out in your backyard, your apartment, your balcony, out in the yard, or in a special place in your house that's quiet. That's fine too. And just close your eyes, put your hands on your heart, set the timer for 5 minutes. Now, if your mind races, fine. It's okay. There's no wrong way to do this, But over time, the more you do it, you'll start to do things like have what I call divine downloads. Other people call them ideas. I call them divine downloads because my idea didn't come to your brain, Holly. It came to mine. So they're divine. And you don't get a divine download when you are spinning, reflecting, going and doing. You get a divine download when you sit still and you're quiet. That's when something occurs to you. Oh, or a revelation, right? Where you say, oh my God, I was having a conversation with that person and I did not show up as my best person. I need to call this person. It actually wasn't them at all. I was blaming them. It wasn't them. That's when you can reflect. But if you don't give yourself that time to connect with your body and to ask yourself, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? I ask women all the time, how often do you ask yourself, what do I need right now? Never.
Yeah.
That's the answer. They don't say, oh, sometimes. They say never. I never do that. That's the beginning of the mind-body connection. Saying, what do I need right now? Right? Because when you say that, you have to almost scan your body, do a body scan. What do I need right now? Well, my back hurts. Feeling like I'm like tensing my shoulders. Let me relax my shoulders. Like, I mean, it's literally like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first gateway step, is just make it simple. Sit somewhere, close your eyes, sit on the floor, sit in the yard, sit on a chair, just put the timer on for 5 minutes and do not judge what happens from there. But just do it for the 5 minutes. Eventually you'll start moving the timer to 7 minutes or 8 minutes or 9. So just let yourself be on the journey and forgive yourself and laugh. I used to laugh at myself, like literally opening my eye, and it would be like 2:23. Okay. So just, I hear you, but just do it, because it's a game changer.
You're like, how has 7 seconds gone by? Like, it feels like it's been 20 minutes. What are you up to now? What's like your meditation timing?
Well, now I don't even have a timer.
You just do it however long.
I do it however it is, because I am ease. So I do it.
I love it.
I don't. So the answer is, I don't know.
It's interesting. There was one, I don't remember in this one, but I remember my life. I was like, because I think we think we're alone sometimes, but we have a podcast on, or we're reading, or we're listening to the radio, or the TV's on. Like, I went to a phase where I was like, there's never a quiet moment in my brain. I wake up and I love to read, which like, that's part of my self-care, right? In the morning, in my work,
me too.
And all that. Like, I love that, but it's still like speeding me, right? And I was like, and then I listen to a podcast, and then I start my day, and then we turn on a TV show, and then I do more reading. And it was like, and I was like, wow, like, and I think it's like you said, it's so important just to have that like little bit of time and spaciousness. Yeah. And I think most of us always have chat, because it's easier to have some chatter, right? It's easier for all of us to have something. 100%. My murder podcast that I love to listen to.
No, but I think you bring up a good point. That's why I don't love the guided meditation, because we're already, like you're saying, we're receiving so much, we're downloading so much, right? Like the TV, the conversation with a girlfriend, the book you're reading, the conversations you're having with your kids, your husband, or your brother, whatever. Yeah. Phone calls, emails, texts, social media. So to me, the meditation is really that time where you're listening. Where you're listening to you. Because when else are we listening to ourselves?
Not very often.
Never.
Not without an agenda, right?
Like, oh, I got to think about this.
Yeah.
Right? No, that's not the same, right? How often we're like, let me see what comes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're laughing. We're laughing. It's true. When are you like, let me see?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Right? Yeah. You're like, I'd rather just write it down, beat it dead, go over it again, research. I mean, we talked about this, like, like we want to control it, right? But that's not ease, and that's what's been your reinvention.
Control is the opposite of ease. That's what's so crazy. People think the control is easy. Like, oh, no, if I control it, it will be easy. It's like, oh, no. Control causes the anxiety and stress, which makes it not easy. That's what the control is. And it's an illusion anyway, because what can we really control? Right. Absolutely nothing. And
you're like, I get it. It makes sense up here, but you're like out in the world, it doesn't, right?
Yeah. But if you think about it, if you really truly ask yourself, right, whatever you're trying to control, let's just say, like in my case, I used to try to control like my kids. Okay. Is the control of my kids actually getting me any closer to what I want? No, because it makes me argue with them and fight with them, and then they resist me and we go back and forth. So actually it's getting you nothing that you want. So once you realize it's actually doing nothing for you except causing more stress, it's easier to let it go. But I know what you mean, because when people used to be like, well, you just got to release the control. As a recovering control freak, I was like, they are funny. Who do they think they're talking to? Fly this plane while I'm in the back. What's wrong with these people? So I get it.
You're like, do they not know I control the world? And if I don't control everything,
the world is spinning because I'm pushing it with my finger. Hello.
Yeah, nobody will make it.
But once you get a taste of some peace and ease,
I love that.
That is some hot stuff.
So it's what I'm hearing is this reinvention was the awareness of like something has to give, and I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face, right? I'm going to see what's going on, and then finding that ease which is opposite of what we always think, right? Like I need to control it, this ease, and then following that piece. And then just I love that meditation that I was not expecting you to say that, but I love that like, giving yourself the space to receive what you need.
Yeah. And I also think, I gave myself a nice permission slip, which is the permission
Mhm.
slip is I'm going to do whatever I want,
Mhm.
whenever I want, because it's my life and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think before it was like everything I did, oh, well, what's someone going to think? Oh my God, if I
Mhm.
do that, what are they going to think? Everything was like, who are the they? I don't even know who they are. Like I would, every move I make, I had such a judgment on it and such a feeling of like, what are people going to think or say if I do this thing? And now I've completely lost that. Like it's gone to a level that's almost hysterical. I'm not like a crazy ass person, but like I don't feel that pressure anymore because now I realize when I get a divine download and I want to do something, I'm doing it for me. Like if someone else doesn't like it, that's okay. But I want to live my life for me. I want to feel like I've lived my life and I haven't sacrificed so much of myself that I get to the end of my life and I say, but I
Mm,
wanted to do all these things. I'm just like, no, I'm doing all the things
yeah.
because I'm not going to get to the end of my life and feel an ounce of regret, not an ounce.
Mhm. That's beautiful. And that doing all the things that you want to do, and like you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a friend, your daughter, all these roles. Um, h- how do those coexist for you, right? Because I think a lot of women don't want to go after their dreams, right? Because they've got their kids, they've got like all these other roles that they're like, oh, well, I can't start a business, I can't travel to Italy, which you went for a month recently, right? Like, how do you? What would be maybe a word of advice you'd give somebody about that? My very, very long-winded question, but
I like this question though, because I think for a long time I felt like that. I felt like,
Mhm.
well, I can't be a good mother and have a business. I can't be
Right.
a good wife and work, this many hours. Like I had all these conditions.
Mhm.
What I've realized now is it's not that you can't work and it's not that you can't do things. What it is you have to let your family into your work. There's
Mhm.
when people talk about work-life balance, I've now realized there's no work-life balance.
Mhm.
My work is my life and my
Mhm.
life is my work. And we're now talking about my family. We're on a podcast. We're talking about life. Like these things together blend seamlessly.
Mhm.
And you don't need to start like this constant fight we're doing, work life, work life. It's like
Yeah.
there is no fight. These things are not opposing each other,
Mhm.
right? So once I brought my kids and my husband into my life, like I sit at the table now and say things like, I had a client sign up today. I'm so
Uh-huh.
excited. She's this great woman. I met her at this party and she's so fun. And I'm so excited she's going to do my mastermind. And they're like, that's great, mom.
Aw.
Like I bring it all to, and my husband the same. Guys, I just finished the first draft of my book. I've been working on this for so long. Can you believe it? They're like, oh my God, Dad, amazing.
So
So like
cool.
we bring everything in. And I think when you do that, then if I say, hey guys, you got to get out of here on podcasting, they're like, on it, mom, totally.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a resentful thing anymore
Mhm.
because they're in it. They're
Yeah.
part of it. It's not against them. It's not, in
Mhm.
opposition of them or making them sacrifice or they don't get that time. They're a part of it. So they feel included and they are invested, frankly, in my business, my happiness, what I'm like. They asked me like, well, what did you talk about in your mastermind? I'm like, oh, we talked about boundaries today. Like, what
Mhm.
do you think, what do you think boundaries mean? Oh, I know what that means. Like
Yeah.
it's that has been a revelation to me, is that talking about that stuff with your partner, with your kids, like
Mhm.
bringing it all with my mom. Like I talked to my mom about all this stuff. I think it's makes everybody closer. It
Mhm.
really, really does. And then you don't have to feel like I can't do this role and this role. That
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's like it all works. You
Yeah.
just make it work. It all goes together.
And how neat they get this like front row seat on entrepreneurship, on leadership, on life stuff, right? And see like, oh, these are problems people have, or that's really neat. And I love it's interesting too, because it's almost like, have we as society, because I remember, I mean, work-life balance is still like such a buzzword, right? Like it's almost like we've created this problem that we didn't even need to have a problem with, right? That we're like, oh, they don't know, they can go together. Certain, I know there are certain circumstances, but I love that you kind of pointed out those fears, and probably a lot of women, mothers, right? Like, I can't do this, but what if you brought your kids along for the ride or showed them a piece of this? or show them it is important to put yourself first, especially you have a young daughter, right? It is important for you to show your daughter, hey, you got to go after your dreams and whatever that looks like.
100%. It's so funny because I'm literally writing this podcast right now, what we're talking about, but I think it's the patriarchy, man. I think this is just one of those things that they've set us up and said, you cannot be a woman who works and does a good job with your family. You can't be a woman that does a good job with your family and also works. You got to have the work-life balance. I think this is a societal bullshit thing that has been thrust upon us. And it is a complete crock of shit.
Yeah.
It also, that whole imposter syndrome, that's bullshit too.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anything. Okay. Yes. Maybe you're a little afraid. You kind of are worried about what other people are going to think. You don't have a syndrome
that keeps you stuck. Your excuse.
No, yeah. You don't have that. You just need to just take a pause, make yourself feel safe and carry on. Like that's it. But we don't need to be framing these things up with these syndromes and it's a thing, work-life balance. It's not a thing. Yeah. I mean, there are real things. Roe v. Wade being overturned, that's a real thing. Women's reproductive rights, that is real. Right. That's a real thing. But like work-life balance, imposter syndrome, no.
Well, and think about like, I mean, we could do a whole nother episode on the patriarchy, right? On smashing it. But like, what are what those two things do? They keep women stuck. They keep women in judgment. They keep women in shame. They keep women not doing things because they're like, I can't go, I've got to be a good mom or a good wife, or I've got to like, And I think I love that you pointed that out, that it's your family is going to be better for it when you take care of yourself,
I put it this way. How much do we love a politician, a male politician, when their little kid runs up to the podium?
Oh God. Yeah.
We're like, we are going to vote for him. He's adorable. They picked
a good dad.
Now think of a woman the same.
Yeah. Well,
you know what the feeling is
seriously? Will she take this job seriously?
She's so unprofessional.
Yeah. She'll have to take him to the dentist. She won't be able to run the country. Like,
she doesn't have it together.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
I mean, literally in my mind, I can see that and I can see how people would react.
Right.
You know, women have to be so fucking careful. They have to act like, oh, I've got it all together. I don't even have a family. I don't even pee. Right. But men, they get to be loosey and goosey and have a kid on their shoulders and come into the Zoom behind them and it's cool. Women have to be like hiding the fact that they are dying inside and they haven't peed in 2 hours. Right. And they got a toddler right there. It's like, I'm so sick of that. You know, I feel like, you know, I won't let women apologize for that, by the way. Women come on the Zoom with me and, oh, I'm so sorry, my daughter. I'm like, no, bring your daughter. I don't even care. Bring your daughter. Like, I really don't care. That's life. You know, we all have things we have to deal with, you know, and that's normal. And it's okay to have to cancel and move things. And that's life. So I think, you know, this is part of us women reconstructing, because it's really now down to the lowest possible level. Reimagining, redefining what it means to work, what it means to live as a woman, and what rights and things that we deserve, and to be treated truly equally versus these fake kind of things they throw at us. You know, like, oh, you're not going to make equal to a man. We're still not going to pay you weekly, but it's close.
We're getting
Isn't that great?
And we have free snacks.
You vote. You vote. Come on now. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So I just feel like these are the last bastions, you know, of just this patriarchy and I think women are now fed up, which I'm really excited about. That is really exciting me.
And we're starting to like, wait, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I've learned so much. I was reading this, do you have a little bit of time or do you have a hard stop?
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's the Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution.
What is it?
It's the Black Man's Guide to the Constitution.
I am going to read this tomorrow.
I'll send it to you. It's phenomenal. I can't think of what his name is. Not Eli something. He's obviously, but I learned so much from that, and so many pieces that you're like, oh, some of the beliefs I have is even somebody who's done the work, who's pretty aware, I'm like, oh, wow, that's maybe not totally true. Or where does that come from? Right. All these things that we talk about.
Yes.
And I think that
everything that's set up, like even if you think about something as mundane as like how the workday was set up. 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Why? because back then people had to work in a factory and they could only go, like they had different reasons why they set these times, but then we just accepted as true. And this is how you work 9 to 5.
Because they had to make these hair clips, right? So you need to produce so many hair clips in 9 to 5. And now it's like, we're an idea situation where you're like, if I have one brilliant idea for the day, like I should be done.
I'm done. Right. And I'm going to take the rest of the afternoon off because relaxation is a money-making activity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So we really need to, I think women are such a powerful force in this reinventing of what work looks like and what life looks like, because Lord knows if we were running things, it would be a whole different show and it would be a great show.
Yeah. Oh,
it would be a great show.
Well, tell me, we could go on and on. I do think we need to have a panel of how we smash the patriarchy and all the patriarchal beliefs. It's a good idea, right? Beliefs that we all kind of buy, that we think, and some we still use them thinking they're not harmful and they really are, right? What that looks like.
I love that.
But as we kind of like wrap up, we talked, a little about this difficult relationships and how honoring yourself, you were able to kind of set that space for both you and your sister. And then we talked a little about your reinvention of yourself and choosing ease, which is probably not what most people think when they reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
So what other, if you could share something with somebody watching who's maybe in either of those situations, I'm always hesitant on advice because everybody's different, right? But maybe what is some guiding principles you could give somebody who's going through either of those situations?
Well, I'll give you something that'll stay with you. I would say don't water dead plants. Because I think women especially will water and feed and nurture things that are not working because we're just scared to maybe branch out, or we're terrified that something has changed, whether it's a friendship or a marriage or a job or some type of relationship. We will water a dead plant and we will pour a lot of ourselves into that thing. And I would just challenge people to not do that and to instead maybe even just take a pause and say, okay, if I didn't put all my energy into this, what would I be putting it into?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's such an interesting question. Because a lot, if you think about, if you make a little pie chart of your energy and where you're expending it, like even if you're a parent and you really, you have kids and you got to be there for these kids. I get it. But what if they don't need all of that energy? What if it's okay to not be running a camp in your house 24 hours a day? What if it's okay to say, for this hour, we're going to chill. This is chill time. You get to do whatever you want in chill time. And mommy does too. Like there's got to be other ways that we can use our energy and not be pouring all the time into everyone else.
Yeah.
It's got to be at some point, you got to put yourself back on the list. Preferably I say at the top, but I'll take you even on it.
I'll take top five, even a little more, but hey, if you're on the 4, yeah, I mean, well, and I think what's great about that too is I love that question, right? Because I'm always like, where would you use that energy if you weren't using it for here? And that's a tough question, because then that really does force you sometimes, because we use our energy on being a mom or being a spouse or being a friend, which is it gives us a pass from not doing the things that we want to do or out of fear, right? So I think that's always a tough question. Like, but if I'm not giving all my time to my kids, like that means I have to put it and chase that dream or see what that is, and that can be really scary, right?
Absolutely. It's the unknown, but I also think the unknown is where the magic is. And when I think of, certain relationships that I really tried so hard to water those dead plants and they never really came back. And I think to myself, there is a natural kind of ebb and flow of life. Like people, like back to the ease, right? Like people come into your life, wearing matching pajamas and you're together and sometimes they float back out, and sometimes they're there for like longer and sometimes they stay for a really long time, and that's all beautiful. But when you're got the chokehold on something and you're trying to just like force it to work, and you're not in ease, it can be painful because you're just like, don't want to let things go. And oh my God, what does this mean? Are we not gonna be friends anymore? Like I feel like it's a kind of thing that women do where they really feel like, a guilt or a shame, like if they were to stop watering a dead plant. But I think that is the mastering of your energies and the feeling of feeling like maybe you could be moving your energies around, and that's a free space where if I can just kind of move things around, like the freedom of that is like juicy, juicy, juicy.
Ooh, I love it. So don't water a dead plant.
Mm-mm.
Love it. And my last question is always, what is something you're currently questioning in your life or in society? Is there anything you're currently kind of questioning?
I don't want to say it out loud. But it came to my mind, so I'm going to say I'm questioning running for office.
You should do it.
Don't hold me to it though, Ollie, for real. I don't know. It comes to my mind. In seasons like this, it comes back to me. And I wonder if that's somewhere in my destiny. And because it's a divine download, it probably is, but I don't know that I'm there yet. But like, sometimes I think of that, like, could I be useful in that space? Could I add something that's different? Could I, is there any magic for me there? I don't know, because I also don't, there's certain parts of the political scheme that are so abhorrent to me, and they're so dark that again, I'm trying to stay in ease and lightness.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to match up. Like, I'd have to really be in the work on that. But I am involved politically. Like, obviously I'm a voter, I'm a good citizen, I'm on top of issues and things. But the more I interview people, and I think like, I'm the leader I'm looking for. I literally just interviewed Grace Van Cleve, and she said, you're the leader you're looking for. And it really, I was like,
I feel that here, because Katie and I had a very similar conversation like 2 weeks ago on something like that. So that's interesting, right? Because we had that meeting with Grace, and she's like, there's no back room of smart people that are here to save us. Right.
Nobody's coming for us.
Nobody's coming, and it might as well be good people that are trying to do things. But that's beautiful. So, well, if you do that, you'll have to keep everybody posted so we can cheer you on.
We'll see. Stay tuned.
PTO president, right? Like that's probably worse.
Yes, I already have I have more experience than Trump.
True. And I would bet PTO parents can be pretty trying. Challenging.
Talk about politics.
Such a gift. Thank you so much for sharing so much. And I look forward to talking to you again.
I love you, Holly.
Love you. Talk to you soon.